And welcome back. Now, when we left off, we were in 3280 BC. Our scouts here were working their way in towards Japanese land, I believe. As you can see, here is the channel, rather, the part of the ocean that comes between Japan and China. This is all of Europe, and here's Greece. So geographically, as well as historically accurate simulation we have going here. So we're going to continue on. Oh goodness, it's Montezuma. He seems upset. Now, as you may recall, I only have 2 citizens, so I'm not going to be able to offer either of them to be sacrificed to his gods. Quetzalcoatl will not be pleased, but perhaps there's something I can do. Discuss. Now, at this point, when the Greek first encountered the Aztec, there was a slight exchange of culture. There was a bit of hostility on both sides. But overall, I think both cultures were quite well suited to each other. Both were very driven towards science and as well towards conquest. The Aztec, as we know, having studied them already, are a very warlike people. But we'll revisit that in a future season of our class. For now, we're just going to say goodbye to Montezuma. We will deal with him when the time comes. It seems Montezuma is going to steal the potential advances of our ancient ruins right out from under our noses, which is not very charitable of him. However, there we have it. So, up here, our warriors are back in Almaty, which is believed to be the historical ancestral home of the apple. As you can see, they have many trees around. Most of these trees here are, of course, apple trees of various varieties. Now, these would be, at this point in history, not domestic apples, but rather wild apples. There was one specific variety, which grows near Almaty, which will go on to be cultivated into the domestic apple that we know and love today. The one which keeps a doctor away, and which is traditionally associated with teachers. Moving on. As we can see, Japan is making their way up the peninsula. Athens has grown in 3200 BC. Consul Alexander, he is a consul at this point, has bemoaned the loss of that ruin. We are going to move in this direction instead. With those ruins gone, we already know that Japan is here. It's not yet time for Japan and Greece to have that level of contact. So we're going to focus instead on growing Athens into the next turn. Montezuma would like to open our borders so that he may bring sacrifices to his altar. But I'm not open to that. Historically, Greece and the Aztec got on well due to their mutual interests that we mentioned earlier. However, I wouldn't call them chummy, and open borders are a kind of chummy thing, so we're going to refuse that for now, and there will be consequences later, as you may recall from our general overview of the history of the Earth. Okay, our soldiers are going to have to... No, that's not good. going to have to wait. They're out of moves, but they've encountered some barbarians who have set up camp in the intervening centuries between Athens and Almaty. So we will have to see what's going to happen next. Let's carry on, shall we? There are more barbarians. That is troubling. Now they're going to attack those scouts. Yeah, this is just as it took place in history. The scouts have barely survived. What they are going to do is fortify here, and hope that these barbarians go after the Aztec instead, which is highly unlikely, but their last stand, which will happen sometime in the next 40 years, is the stuff of legend. We will come back to view that when it happens. The Aztec, of course, fleeing from the might of the barbarians. And yes, here we are. Last stand of the Greek explorers. Here in the middle of Europe. A day of sorrow indeed. Now let us continue on as our warriors make their way home. Over the course of nearly a century. Now, as it turns out, we don't like to smile very much. That is most likely because Greece is more focused on serious matters, such as the nature of the universe. So we can't take that hard. We can simply recognize that that is what it is, and move on from there over the intervening centuries. As time passes, and passes, and we finally found the horses, which will, someday soon, become Alexander's companions.
So teach us to number our days,
that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. Indeed. This will allow us to create plantations, which are more well known as an American innovation. However, they were used all over the world throughout history. So, this will give us some luxury items, and will start helping us win the happiness race within the next few centuries when our workers are ready to go. So there we go. It's time to choose our next research, which will be the wheel. On we go. Here we can see some sugar. Now, sugar was not popular in Greece, particularly at this point in history. But, as this is, as you recall, Europe, we do know that sugar was popular in some parts of that region. Our worker will be done in 40 years, and in the intervening time, we will probably see the rest of this area, at least down to this mountain chain, which is clearly the Alps. Those Aztec scouts are approaching Athens, where our worker has just been created. Now, our warriors are no match for the barbarians because they're more of a thinking man's warrior. Their concerns are, of course, more along the lines of how to survive, how to live, how to be. In the meantime, we are going to create Can we afford a settler yet? Is it that time in history for us to settle this region? I think it is. This unit, the worker, you're going to have come right here. and in 40 years the worker will be ready to begin work. Clearly they are union workers, and we will start on a plantation there. The Aztec scouts having smartly evaded the barbarians. Oh, here we go. I'd like them to... Naturally, we cannot do that yet. So we are going to have those workers do something. Perhaps mine cotton. Let us continue. (2720 BC). And the world is shaping up very well around us. We can see the majority of our large island, or perhaps a continent. We don't know what's beyond the mountain range. We have not yet crossed them to get into Persia and fight the elephants there, but in time we shall. There's some Japanese scouts. They'll soon run into the barbarian encampment as well. And it is once again time for us to adopt a policy, which we are going to do now. Now, for our policy, citizenship increases our construction rate, or collective rule for newly founded cities. Start with 50% of the food necessary to gain their second citizen. Now this sounds more like what Greek was tending towards at this point in history, as we are about to found our second city within the next few hundred years. Carrying on. Our soldiers are slowly making their way home. Oh, there are those barbarians. You know what? This is a point in history where Greece had its first victory over the barbarian horde, which greatly increased morale at home. Let's watch this battle take place now. See the Greek warriors bravely clubbing these barbarians to death. They did lose a few men. They lost 4. Which is tragic. However, that is just the way that the cookie crumbles. Now these warriors we're going to have them hang out here in the plains until they feel a little better. And we're going to move on to see what history will bring us next. 2560 BC. 2200 years until Alexander is 0. Not much going on right now in our corner of the world, so we're going to continue. The wheel. Wisdom and virtue are like the 2 wheels of a cart, which is a Japanese proverb. And carts in Japan at this point, at which the proverb came to prominence, had only 2 wheels, which was useful for something. We'll have to check why a 2-wheeled cart would be desirable. Now, as we know, wheelbarrows have only 1 wheel, but carts in general have 4, unless we're thinking of a racing cart, which would only have 2 wheels. But we shall see. New research project. Now, as we may recall, there was something we needed to learn, that being mining, in order to start getting Greece happy again. So we're going to start learning about mining. Because, as we know, mining is one of the most rewarding things a person can do. It makes them very happy. Miners have an entire lifestyle where they often enjoy getting stuck underground. And we're going to learn about that more in the next video.